So we're using a companion expository text lesson today. And the companion lesson is about eggs. I am starting out by using a book called Amazing Eggs. It's from the series We Both Read by Fran Hodgkins. Inside the book, there are all kinds of animals and the fact that they hatch from an egg. On one side of the page, I will get to it in a minute, that's what this is. It's what the adult reads on the left side of the page. And on the right side of the page, it's what a child reads. The content on the adult side is deeper, more complex than the content on the child side. But the children can certainly learn from what the adult reads, and it's encouraging reading together in expository text form. In our manuals and on our website, I just saw a question about did we have a list of expository text books. We have many lessons and recommendations on our website that are free for you to look at and use. So I just love this series of We Both Read. My grandson Jerry, who's going into first grade, loves to call all the information details. He says, there's another detail. I guess there's been somebody telling him about details. So we decided to choose the sea turtle as the topic that we're going to use today. And recently we were in, just a couple of weeks ago, in Pinellas County delivering professional development to our colleagues who are pictured in this picture. We were at Clearwater Beach, and on the day we left, we just decided to go take a little walk on the beach and collect some shells, where we saw this do not disturb sea turtle nest, and my granddaughter Lauren took a picture of it. So here it was, our inspiration for today. This is the left-hand side of the page from the book that I just showed you about We Both Read. Sea turtles come up onto the beach to dig deep holes where they deposit their eggs. They bury the eggs in the sand to keep them warm and hide them from other animals. Then the mother turtle returns to the sea, and the eggs are left to hatch on their own. So one of the structures that I would look at if I was reading that would be a sequence, what the mother sea turtle does. The child side shows the baby sea turtles hatching. The baby turtles dig out of the nest, then they run to the sea. So there's a sequence also, but it's much more simple than the adult. So what I'd like to show you is the video of the sea turtle nesting, because we build knowledge in many ways. We build knowledge through books, but we also build knowledge and content through technology.
And so what you will want to do, once again, is to go up to the right-hand corner of your screen to the toolbar and click on the arrow if it's not already open, and scroll down to the link that says tinyurl.com/seaturtlestm, that means theme maker. And you will be independently watching this video. It's about 3 minutes long. So we will start the clock in a couple of seconds, and we will ask you to open up that link and watch the sea turtle nesting video on your own, and we will be back in 3.5 minutes.
We'll be starting again in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right. So the sea turtle video. Our plan here was to take the simple book about the parent and child reading together, coupling it for more advanced understanding with the visual of seeing the sea turtle nesting, which is a similar sequence to doing that. And then we're going from there to an article that a student would read with text-based questions, which is what we're going to get to. Now, all of this is in your handouts. All of what we're going to do next is in the handouts. There's an article on the sea turtle. There is the analysis that we used, the story grammar, not the story grammar, but the expository maps that we used to analyze that article. And then there are the children's samples for you to use with your students if you'd like to try this. So I wanted to mention also, as we're kind of coming back together, there was just a question about how there's so much emphasis on expository text. There is a lot of emphasis on expository text. We cannot forget the narrative, though, because the narrative tells us about life. If you go back to Jerome Bruner's 2 types of thinking, there's the logico-scientific, which would be this, and there is the narrative, which is life in general. So I did also want to mention that expository information is depicted in disciplinary writing. So the scientists write a certain way, the historians write a certain way, the economists write a certain way, and they use certain vocabulary and certain structures. There are also graphs, bar graphs, and charts that need to be interpreted by using expository information as well. A bar graph may show the problems. It may show a sequence. So it's very valuable to look at text structures as we're looking at them today. So first you saw the book, the child and the parent, little paragraph. Now you saw the sea turtle nesting, which gave more detail. Gail Gibbons and Frank Staub are the authors of these 2 books that are further information about sea turtles. I love Gail Gibbons' books, and I just have to mention those. Each of the pages, they're picture books, and each of the pages in her expository collection is a different text structure. It may be a description, it may be cause-effect, it may be a list, it may be a sequence. They're very short paragraphs, and there's a lot of pictures. So they're very, very valuable for short lessons on text structure identification, and very interesting. They cover a whole topic, which would be sea turtles, the octopus, there's rabbits, all kinds of animals, and every detail you don't even have to know about them. So Gail Gibbons is also a Common Core recommended author in Appendix B of the Common Core. Now this is the sea turtle article handout about sea turtles being very interesting and mysterious animals. This says in print a lot of the things that the video showed and some of the information that was in the Simple Children's book, certainly information that is in the Gail Gibbons book. But this is written as an article that students had to read in school. So the first part describes the sea turtle. The second paragraph is about time to lay eggs. So I'm just going to read that. When it's time to lay eggs, the female turtle travels back to her birthplace and crawls up on the beach past the high water mark to dry, sandy soil using her large flippers as legs. Now, the fact that I observed the sea turtle nest at Clearwater Beach, it was above the high water mark. I wouldn't have noted that fact if I hadn't known this information about sea turtles. So, of course, firsthand experience is extremely valuable. Prior knowledge is what we're trying to develop by this 6th pillar of reading. Prior knowledge is how children can use what they know and remember to help themselves gain knowledge. So then she has to take a rest, since walking on land makes her extremely tired. Soon she begins to lay her eggs. She digs at least one deep hole in the sand and lays up to 150 eggs in it. Next, she covers the eggs with warm sand and walks back into the sea. The sand covering this nest protects the eggs until they hatch. A little detail: the warmer the nest temperature, the more female turtles hatch. If the temperature is balanced, there will be a balanced number of males and females. The paragraph that I read contains a sequence of steps, and it ends with 2 sentences showing cause-effect. Now, this is a sequence map from our expository text collection. A sequence is different from a list because a sequence has to be in order. So a scientist doing an experiment could list the things that he needed for the experiment, but he would have to sequence the steps in order to have the experiment turn out the way he expected it to do. So here we have the words down the left side that are the signal words: to begin with, first, next, then, after that, or soon after, and finally. If you notice, it's just a point that I wanted to make, topic sentences are extremely hard for students. And I like to use the magnets to illustrate what's on this map, and then have the kids come up with the topic sentence after they have mapped out the details of whatever it is that they're reading. So when female sea turtles reach land to lay their eggs, they have to do several things. If you recall the topic sentence boxes that I referred to earlier in the workshop, several was in the adjective box and things is in the noun box. So all in all, this is a synopsis or a summary of that paragraph, the sequence paragraph. The rest of the article went on to talk about how when sea turtles hatch, they cause shaking sand. That was the last part that I didn't read. So hatching sea turtles cause shaking sand. Shaking sand happens because sea turtles are hatching. So it could be turned the other way, and the word because could be used. According to the passage, sea turtles. The sand on the beach might shake because baby sea turtles might be hatching. You're going to find the key words in the box. You're going to find at the top, your plan, or the author's plan, is to explain the reason why something happened. If we go back to the sequence map and we look at the plan, it's to tell the order or steps. It's a different purpose. And then facts about sea turtles, which would be a list map. The purpose or the plan is to list the things related to a topic. If you'll notice, there are no sequence words down the side. This is a list. And it has words like, for example, furthermore, in addition to. They spend their lives in water. They go back to the place where they were born. Baby turtles know they have to go right to the water when they hatch. The topic sentence, sea turtles are very interesting. Or, I read many facts about sea turtles, but these are my 3 favorites. This activity that follows, that you have the materials for, was done in a 4th grade classroom, trying to assist children in looking at text text-based questions. That's a buzzword that I'm sure you've all heard. Questions related directly to the text. A text-based question would be, when sea turtles reach land, what steps do they follow in order to lay their eggs? Support your answer with important details from the article. You might see the sand shake as you are walking on a beach someday. According to the passage, what makes the sand shake? Support your answer with important details from the article. The third question. Sea turtles are interesting animals. List 3 facts that interested you as you read the article about sea turtles. Support your answer with important details from the article. It's no wonder that my grandson Jerry likes the word details. So what this activity was here, it was to help the kids try to decide what kind of a plan the author had if in writing the paragraph they were going to read, if this was the question. So the kids wrote the first one, their answer was sequence, or this child's answer was sequence. So the author wanted to what? State the sequence or the steps that the sea turtles follow in order to lay their eggs. Number 2 is cause-effect. The sand shakes. The effect is, or actually the sea turtles are hatching, causing the effect of the shaking sand. And then the third one is a list. It says it right in the prompt. List 3 facts that interested you as you read about sea turtles. And then the kids turn the question into the first sentence. They're taught to do those types of things. But there are a lot of children who cannot identify the text structure. If a child can't identify the text structure, they end up not having a roadmap for getting through the text, because expository text is very complex in that an author might choose to put 2 or 3 text structures in one paragraph. We saw that in the paragraph about the sea turtles, where there was the sequence back here, where there was the sequence, and then there was the cause effect. If there's a warmer nest temperature, then female turtles hatch. If the temperature is balanced, there will be a balance of males and females. So in that paragraph, there was the sequence, and then there was cause and effect. As students get older and the text becomes more complex, a lot of times it alienates them, not only because the text structures are many, but the sentence structures are advanced as well. 3 and 4 details might be contained in a sentence. So anyway, it's important with text-based questions to try to see what the author was getting at in the passage when these questions are asked. So I'm going to show you 3 4th grade student examples using the sequence passage. I'm not going to be using the cause effect necessarily, but there is cause effect there. So we've supplied you with the maps, the blank maps for the cause effect and the list as well. So here's the task. The teacher chunks the text. There's a need to choose a segment of text, especially if you're doing this in an intervention or just teaching about it. Here's a whole passage about sea turtles, but we're going to take this one section and we're going to work with it today. I would talk with the group, thinking aloud, and using the magnets for listing, sequencing, and cause effect. In this instance, I'm going to use the sequence magnets to talk about it. I'm going to map the sequence on a sequence map with the students. So I'm going to take out the information. The teacher provides the maps, and those are in your handouts. And then the students are going to write a paragraph using the sequence, cause, effect, and list cohesive tie words where appropriate. And then underline details from the passage that were in addition to the things that were on the map. So here is the passage, and I read that already to you. So if you look at it, you're going to see the word when. It's time to lay eggs. The female sea turtle travels back to her birthplace and crawls up on the beach past the high water mark to dry sandy soil using her large flippers as legs. Then, which is another signal that we've got a sequence, then she has to take a rest since walking on land makes her extremely tired. Soon, she begins to lay her eggs. That's another sequence tie. She digs at least one deep hole in the sand and lays up to 150 eggs in it. Next, which would be another sequence keyword, and in this paragraph, the author has used these words, which if kids were looking at it as a cue, they'd be able to find these words and think to themselves, oh, this is probably a sequence. Next, she covers the eggs with warm sand and walks back to the sea. So what we did is we used 3 students, Mackenzie, Brandon, and Shannon. And each of the students now has the prompt at the top. The teacher has made a copy of the sequence map, and the information that they used from the magnet lesson is on the map. You'll notice there are check marks next to cohesive tie words that are going to indicate sequence words for the paragraph. So what the students need to do and practice first of all orally from the map. When they turn and talk, they should be using a map and practice that. Then they come back to writing it. But what they had to be aware of is the topic. They have to be aware of the cohesive tie words. And those cohesive words are related to the sequence of the paragraph. And then they have to be aware of the information that make up the sequence. So what are the actions that are making up the sequence of actions there? They crawl, they reach, they lay eggs, they cover the eggs, and they leave and return. So those are all verbs. And they are the sequence of steps that the sea turtles take. So this is Mackenzie's now. And when we look at Mackenzie's paragraph, when sea turtles reach land to lay their eggs, they have to do several things. And that's the topic sentence that was written by the group using those 2 boxes that I showed you earlier for the concept of several things. So the sea turtles crawl from the water. Next, they reach dry land. The female has to mark her spot for the eggs, which really wasn't in the paragraph, but may have been something the child knew. Then the female turtle lays her eggs in a deep hole. After that, the mama covers her eggs with warm sand. Finally, the sea turtles go back to the sea. That was some interesting facts about sea turtles and how they lay eggs. The concluding sentence is about interesting facts, so we'd want to hone in on that, but we have a good topic sentence, we have seen where the child actually, Mackenzie actually used the cohesive tie words. Now this is Brandon. We're looking for the cohesive tie words, and we're looking for information that is related to the details also that the students used in their article. So, for instance, Brandon, if we look at it, he has first, next, then, after that, and finally, which are circled in yellow. He uses the verbs. He uses crawl, reach dry sand. He uses those. And he also uses details from the story to add to this for his paragraph. And those are underlined in green. They go to the same place where they were born. Walking on land makes her extremely tired. So the turtles reach dry land, but the detail is that walking on land makes her extremely tired. A detail is that there were 150 eggs.
Hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, seems like the sound is back.
All right, thank you for telling us that you can hear us now. So I was talking about Brandon, who's the second, fourth grader. And he has used all the elements. He's used the cohesive tie words, and he's used the verbs from his sequence map. He incorporated the topic sentence, and he also used details, which are underlined in green, that made his paragraph more meaty. And then we have Shannon, who didn't finish the entire paragraph, but she did include a lot of good things. When female turtles reach land to lay their eggs, they have to do several things. And of course, that was the topic sentence that was brainstormed by the group. Shannon uses the cohesive tie words that indicate a sequence, an expository sequence. To begin with, next, then. She also uses details. They go back to their birthplace. They go past the high water mark, using flippers as legs. And she also refers to ping-pong-shaped eggs. So when writing an expository paragraph, it's very important to chunk the article for teaching purposes. So it's important for you to read it ahead of time and determine whether or not you think there's a list or a sequence or is this cause-effect. And I mentioned how for teaching purposes, Gail Gibbons' books are great because the paragraphs are well organized in that book. So anyway, from this article, it's important to use the cohesive tie words that are on the map. It's important to use whatever is the macro structure words. So in this instance, the macro structure words are the verbs that indicate the sequence. And then it's important to help the students know that they can add to their sentences by putting in details which were not necessarily on the map. Now, Shannon talked about the high water mark. She talked about the ping-pong-shaped legs, for instance. Ping-pong-shaped eggs. So we had 3 fourth graders who had a little different outcome of the same lesson. Mackenzie used cohesive ties, but not a lot of detail, extra detail. Brandon used the cohesive ties, more detail. And Shannon was on her way to using probably the most detail. One of the biggest things that I can recommend for information text is that students know the author's plan, which would be the author's purpose, that they know the topic, that they can talk about the text structure. I just had a question about what if you chunk the paragraph and the students have no idea what structure it is? Well, that may be a very common scenario. I then tell them that it is a sequence. I say to them, there is a sequence of actions in this paragraph. And if they still look at me, I show them where it begins, where the sequence begins, and we talk through it. We think aloud, and we talk back and forth using the magnets or the stamps, because the same stamps can be used for expository text. It's always good to have some kind of a self-reflection, to have the student look at what they've done and then score themselves to make them more aware. We have a lot of things going on with the exploration of thought and knowledge and the use of strategies to get to all of this. My main point is road mapping using text structures is huge. So in this one now, since just number 1, give yourself a point for each yes answer. And this is just something that Sheila Zagula did with her 4th graders, and I just thought it was great. She has a sequence map up there.
It's in my hand.
And it's in your handout for you to use, but there's a sequence map up there which was the main structure. But we could list the actions if we wanted to. So that's why there's a list map up there as a model as well. You could use magnets, or you could just draw the symbols. So give yourself a yes answer. Since the question is about a sequence of steps, did the writer have the correct sequence, yes or no? Did the writer add at least 3 details from the selection? List them below, and if they're listed, you can give yourself a check. Did the writer have a good topic sentence? So it's just helping the children, the students, to reflect on what they wrote or what they said. You'll notice that I'm talking about reading, I'm talking about speaking, I'm talking about listening, and I'm talking about writing. I'm talking about all the elements of literacy. All the elements of literacy stem from oral discourse development. And oral discourse is composed of the sounds themselves, the vocabulary words, the words that are put into some kind of sentences, sentences that are combined using cohesive ties, and then put into a structure by an author who has a plan to communicate knowledge.